intend to resign as the Prime Minister of Canada. I had a long chat with my wife and my son and my personal trainer Javier, who has the body of a construction man wielding a jackhammer for hours on end. I told them, I don't care how much Canadians want me to be their Prime Minister. I have dreams. I know Canadians love me dearly, but damn it, it's time to move on. Thanks for letting me practice my speech on you, Dad. I wish you were still around. Hello? Justin, it's Donald. I'm calling because I heard you're quitting and I want to make one last offer to buy Canada. How many times do I have to tell you Canada is not for sale? Come on, Justin. Everything has a price. What if I promise to get you a job at Tim Hortons? That's it. You've crossed the line. Now I have to use a firm hand. I hate to use such a firm hand, but he left me no choice. Hello? It's me again. I drew a map of the United States. You should see it. I even drew a little red circle around where we'll put your house. Didn't you get my firm hand the last time? I hung up on you. Oh, I thought you lost connection. No, I used the same firm hand I used to make the lives of Canadians better over the last 10 years. Hanging up the phone was supposed to be threatening to you. Really? And what would you do if I never stop calling? If you don't stop threatening to buy Canada, I'll have no choice but to use my firmest hand. Well, then we're not just gonna buy Canada. We're gonna buy Canada at a huge discount. Fine. You asked for it. There. See? Now you should really feel threatened. I hate to use such a firm hand, but you left me no choice.
We're watching as the world's unmade and call it all our golden age. Ooh, we are beyond control. Ooh, no vision can deliver us. We're golden calves until we're dust. Ooh, we're born upon a throne. Ooh, don't you know? Ain't nobody safe from us. All you ghosts are better off where you come from. And I set out to tame the land with lion teeth and jaws of lambs. Ooh, I'm drunk on the control. Until the fiction wastes away, until there's nothing left uncaged. And I am on my own. Don't you know? Ain't nobody safe from us. All you ghosts are better off where you come from.
Hey, we are back. How's my sound? Everything good?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, sounds really good, Weathers.
Awesome.
Hello.
No crackling this time.
Nope, all's well. But
How's it going?
I drew a new map
Oh.
of the United States. You should see it. I love that. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
when
my
did we
gosh.
find that? When did we find that guy?
Oh,
Al Barry,
man.
right?
Yeah, you found it like a few weeks ago, and we've been just like laughing about it ever since. Oh, it's so spot on too. And he's like, I drew a little map of your house, and it's in the middle of China, like right there. I can get you a job at Tim Hortons. Oh, I love it. It's gold.
I think it was a good one to start off with this week, especially since he's officially gone.
Yes.
He went and took his share out, and now
Yeah.
it's Emperor Carney
Yeah.
charge.
Emperor Carney, and I saw like a few memes of Justin Trudeau like taking his chair out of the Commons, and people are like swapping out his chair for like his like box of costumes or like whatever else. Yeah,
His turban.
his
all-
turban, yeah, all his
What's with his
all,
tongue and stuff? He's always doing that sticking his tongue out thing. He
I
did it when he
know.
did his blackface deal,
yeah.
So
I mean, I can't remember if you posted in the show notes or if I saw it this morning on X that like they had somebody had like a side by side of like it was actually 3 panels. It was Trudeau with his tongue out here and Trudeau wearing blackface with his tongue out, and then his latest like his when he's carrying his like seat out of the Commons with his tongue out. He's I'm so glad he's on his way out. My goodness.
I have to admit, I sadly voted for him twice.
It's okay.
I don't know why. I
It's
really don't.
It's okay, Weathers. You had no idea that it was going to be this bad. like honestly, when he got in initially, I didn't think it would have been this radical. You know, I thought he was going to be.
No, you're right.
I thought he was going to be like this sort of like, I don't know, this sort of caretaker type prime minister that would have his like annoying like optics and like jogging and photo shoots and all this stuff, but I didn't think it would have been this bad. But here we are.
I mean, like, I had this stupid naive image of his dad, you know, like with the little rose on his lapel, and you know, like little bit of dignity, and you know him. And then the one thing I always heard about was how he went to England and brought back our constitution and brought it in and housed it in Canada. And I kept thinking, like, if a man could do that, he can't be all that bad.
Yeah. And like
and if a man gave birth, well, maybe he didn't give birth. Well, maybe he didn't sire. That would be the better word. That son of his. I would think that, you know, there would be some kind of, you know, like maybe he would bring back stuff, you know, bring back some kind of dignity to the role of Prime Minister of Canada, leader of Canada, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. I mean, I had a notion, like I didn't vote for him at the time. I know I voted for Harper, but I was just like, oh, this is just going to be another sort of like caretaker type person. But yeah, it was so radical, and it was such a departure from what we're used to, right? Like he went down the globalist, he went like all in as far as globalist initiatives were concerned, and here we are almost 10 years later at the end of his tenure.
Well, honestly, I have to, the truth, honestly, one of the things that probably got me to vote in the beginning is that I saw one of my favorite teachers from high school was actually in his campaign party and stuff. And there was a photo of her. Miss Barassa, if you're listening, you know, you're still one of my favorite teachers. I have to say that. I saw this photo of them together, and it's like, you know what? I should probably vote for him. And all that. Nice teacher. She can't be that bad. He's a teacher too. I had a respect for teachers. You know, my dad was a teacher and stuff for a bit. Taught Spanish and all that. You know, there was always I always had some respect for teachers. And many years later, sorry to say, all you teachers, all of my favorite teachers and all that, is that I'm starting to get the impression that a lot of them have actually caused the problems we have in this country and stuff, you know? But I don't know what it is. And you know, like, you get, you know, I loved the movie Mr. Holland's Opus. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I believe a teacher is. That's my image of a teacher and all that. And then now that I'm old and you know, kind of like, I don't know, have a different view of the world and stuff, and it's sort of like, I don't know. It's just like I've kind of lost that love for teachers and stuff, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, we view them more as like fallible people, just like everyone else, instead of these like...
Well, you don't want to believe the story that, you know, they're failed professionals, and a lot of them actually are, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, like it's almost
You know,
like there's, when you have that really genuinely awe-inspiring teacher that is more like a mentor and stuff, those are rare gems in your like public school life, you know, at least for me anyway. And I think for most people, that you get that odd, really great teacher that is inspiring and knows their subjects and stuff like that. But yeah, like most teachers are going about their daily grind like like so many other people, and they get jaded.
Even in the movie Mr. Holland's Opus, he was a failed musician, you know, or a musician who just couldn't make money from the thing he loved the most and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had several teachers. I forgot what's his name, but he was like a substitute teacher in my elementary school and stuff.
Yeah.
And I heard over the years that he was basically an engineer who couldn't find work, and then basically fell into this role of substitute teacher and just never got out of that.
Hmm.
You know, and I don't want to look at them as like, you know, as failed whatevers and stuff. But anyways,
Yeah.
it's
I
weird
know.
how you grow and then you kind of get wise to the world, and then you see things very differently than when you were like even just a decade ago, and it's sort of like,
Oh, definitely. And we're definitely in that boat right now. I mean, to invoke the name of Jordan Peterson, right? Like, he's been talking about this a lot, where at one time, you know, I'm not sure when this happened, 15 years ago, was a watershed maybe, about where we were pretty confident in the integrity of Canada's institutions, you know, the media, the government, our education system, and
CBC.
the CBC and our media. But now we're at the point where a lot of people, including us, like, we're very cynical about how truthful these institutions are and whether or not they're working in the country's best interest. So yeah, like, we have this more like cynical view, but it's necessary because um, I think they've lost their integrity. You know.
Well, like even last week, I mean, one of the things that happened last week was basically in the United States, the federal Department of Education is getting dissolved.
Yes, and isn't that
You
amazing?
know,
Oh my goodness!
yeah, and well,
And
you know, there was a point in my life where I would have thought that was awful. You
yeah,
know,
but right
and then
now I'm
you
cheering it on personally.
and
Like,
I can't disagree with you. You know,
yeah,
it's sort of like when I've read what they've done, and I mean the whole point, like, they have a budget. You know, they have billions of dollars in budget, and we apparently spend them. Not we. The United States apparently spends that much money, or the most money in the world, on you know, funding these departments, and they're like the rock bottom.
yeah,
You know, of all the developed countries, they're not anywhere that deserving of the budget they gave them to improve the education.
yeah.
They're, you know,
That's
and so
the
you got to
thing.
start asking yourself, what the hell, you know?
Where is the money going? Yeah, because when you look at like money per capita or money spent per pupil in the United States, I think, wasn't the United States like number one on
Yeah, they
money
were.
spent per pupil, and people are
And then the
getting out
ranking of
of
all the developed
secondary,
worlds.
yeah, and people are getting out of secondary school and they can't read,
Yeah,
you know,
no,
and it's like,
exactly.
and people quite rightly ask, like, well, where's the money going? And Canada is probably in a very similar boat, because I know, like, our, like, money spent per pupil, I know it's a provincial jurisdiction, but and we're just not getting the results, and we're falling behind, and what there's something inherently wrong in what's going on with
Well, especially when
education.
you look at the rankings and stuff, and you see like countries like India and China are like leagues above us
Yeah,
in the United States, despite the amount of money we pour into our education and stuff,
yeah.
you know?
I know
It can't be all genetics, and it can't be all cultural,
no. It has to
you
be,
know?
there's something terribly wrong in the education system, right? And it needs to be overhauled. And to his great credit, like, Trump has taken on that giant albatross of American education, and it's amazing he's doing what he's doing right now. Um, I mean, I don't like some of the stuff that affects our country directly. I'm kind of ambivalent about, but like all the stuff that he's doing with Doge and reform is sorely needed. It's like the course correction that America needs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think it, at least for the United States, it's caught people off guard.
yeah,
You know,
and
like if this was a thing nobody could, I mean, if we were this time last year, people were still saying things like the swamp is undefeatable. It's always going to be there. The deep
Yeah.
state and all. And here he is basically taking a chainsaw to it,
Yeah.
you know?
It's amazing. And it's what needs to happen. It really does. Even
Yeah.
and he's only been in there for a short time, but he's moving so quickly.
7 weeks.
Yeah.
Can you believe it's only 7 weeks?
No, it feels like he's been in because he's done so much, and along with Elon Musk, and that's why we're starting to see that terrible resistance now. I will get into that later in the show, but and I feel like we need to have a similar program here in Canada, but I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it. I guess that remains to be seen. I hope
Well,
Pierre can
depends
get
on-
in and do something like it, but
Well, even if he does get in, like I think he's just going to be very busy with other things, especially since, stuff like the Trump tariffs and, and all that. So, anyways, before we get any further, we should really just start the show anyways.
Yeah.
So let's go through the typical hi, I'm Weathers and
Hi, I'm Mikerowaveable. Hi, everyone. Good to be with you again this week.
and we're the Common Nonsense. As you can see, what we do, we basically spend the whole week, not all our time, but most of our time, watching the YouTubes, watching X, and trying to make sense of, how we fit into all this as Canadians, as common Canadians and all,
Mhm.
And then we come back every Wednesday at 4:20, and we try to give our own thoughts about where we are and try to glean anything worthwhile watching. And hopefully at the end of the show, maybe you'll rewatch the show, maybe you'll take a look at their comments, maybe you'll take a look at some of the stuff that we'll present to you today in video. And you can find most of these things in YouTube, and you'll find all the links in our comments after the show and stuff.
Yeah.
So
and feel free to reach out to us on Twitter.
Wait,
or
let me bring them up. I'll bring them up. I'll bring
here we
them up.
go.
Let me just remember how to do that. Banners, right? It's been a while. All right. So the typical info like this, our Twitter handles at Hand and Infinity, where you'll find the blue check mark for the show, the Common Nonsense. The videos will be posted there, and you can reach me there. And at Mikerowaveable TCN, that's where you can find Mikerowaveable. If you want to talk to him, if you want to comment to him, if you want to yell at him, you can do so over there.
Yeah, please do.
For YouTube, if you like watching YouTubes, if that's where you're watching us, you'll find the channel. If you go to the channel page, you'll find the playlist for the show at the top. You can't miss it. Look through our shows, play the playlist. Playlist will play from start to finish or from finish to start. So please watch our other shows. Any watch is good support on that platform for us. And also in Rumble, as you can see, we're branded now. Thanks to all the people who view us there, and thanks to all the views we get from all our videos. Thank you very much once again. We're at the Common Nonsense Podcast channel on Rumble. You can definitely watch us there. The channel basically has all the shows. And the one thing to remember about the Rumble so far is that we upload the show, after the live show. So you won't be able to watch us live, but if you wanted to catch up with us, you can definitely find all our videos there. And sometimes you might have to, who knows, you know how YouTube is. We get canceled sometimes. We actually only got canceled once, but luckily we got our video back up. So anyways, if all else fails, you can always catch us on Rumble. Yeah. So we're good to go start the show. We got all the intros out. So I guess we'll get to our timeline like we typically do. The first on our timeline, there's a bunch of YouTubers we do follow, and one of them is Mr. Sunshine Baby, despite his weird name. He does a very good, I don't know, he does some pretty good videos on like what's going on. He keeps up to date. He has like, I don't know. I think some of the stuff I watch, puts a lot of stuff into perspective. I guess he's very right-leaning, very conservative-leaning. I believe he's a Polyev fan and all. And, I think he's constantly talking about how you know, a lot of people are on him because he's always very real with his views, especially when Pierre's not doing very well in the polls for whatever reason. He'll talk about it straight up and not sugarcoat it and stuff. But I like his honest takes and stuff. Anyways, he got a chance to appear or to be in the gallery at the BC
Legislature. Yeah.
So their House of Commons, I guess, or whatever. And the man got called out by this dude. So let's play it and see what he actually did.
The leader of the opposition got up and said some words about standing up for Canada. Well, it's important that we all stand up for Canada. And I'm a firm believer, Honourable Speaker, that when you wear the hat, you support the team. And so when we hear from a leader of the opposition, when we hear... Members. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. So I won't address all the issues I have with the opposition when it comes to those on his side who want to wear a MAGA hat. But I do have a question for the Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Speaker. Does he think it's appropriate, Honourable Speaker? Does he think it's appropriate that a member of his caucus stands up in this House today and introduces someone known as Mr. Sunshine Baby, seated in the gallery? And I'll tell you what it has to do, Honourable Speaker, because yesterday the person that introduced by this caucus, Honourable Speaker, posted a video that said, "The fat pig Doug Ford in Ontario is ready to cut off the power and Liberals are cheering him on." This is quite literally, by definition, an act of war. Honourable Speaker, does the Leader of the Opposition think it's appropriate for a member of his caucus?
All right, it gets all noisy afterwards. It's whatever. I mean, shout out to Mr. Sunshine Bay. Love your videos.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, like, you know, like this guy's obviously virtue signaling.
Big time.
Calling out new media, basically, you know, as, you know, basically pushing them all towards the right, the far right, or whatever they want to associate anybody on YouTube or anybody on these platforms as illegitimate media, you know, automatically and stuff. And bet you he hasn't even really listened to his show and stuff, just likes to basically push him to the right and, you know, use him as basically a prop to point out that the right are just a bunch of racists and stuff, essentially. You know?
Yeah, that's definitely the tone here taken by the Minister of Transport or whatever he is. But it's such a meta-political coup for Mr. Sunshine Baby to be mentioned and to be talked about in oral question period, right? Even though the tone is negative, it's an amazing testament to the power of meta-politics where, you know, he's Mr. Sunshine Baby is on Twitter and he's a YouTuber, but he's getting his message out there, right? And that's a perfect thing to do when you're trying to fight this leftism and this leftist orthodoxy, right? And
it goes back also
it's really
to,
good, right? And didn't
for him, I'm sure it got him some more clicks and fans and stuff. But I mean, like, also, like, to what we were talking about a few like maybe last week or a few weeks back, this whole idea of, like, you know, defending the CBC and you know, of course, how, I guess, captive they are to basically the left. Doesn't even matter who's in power, I think, you know, and all this unbiasedness, you know, that we really expect of our publicly funded media, but you know, still, I mean, they're just like this guy, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's amazing,
framing narratives and not actually speaking the truth. And the guy was, I mean, I saw his post on, you know, calling Ford a fat pig. I probably would have agreed with him too. You know, it's nothing to do with being fat anyways, that he is, sorry to say. But I mean, like, the guy's a little bit of a hothead, you know.
He is, yeah. And yeah, it's just,
and he's your premier, by the way.
yeah, that's right. It's interesting, like, it's interesting how you have, like, you know, the party in power there. It's the NDP, right? David Eby and and this guy in the BC Legislature, that they're defending Doug Ford, who is a progressive conservative in Ontario, because, like, I guess they're trying to, as best they can, present a united front against the Americans, but they're having this big question period fight about a YouTuber and a guy on X Twitter, and I think it's really hilarious, and it is great. It's the only way that we can break through that monopoly that you just talked about, whether it's that our public broadcaster and the establishmentarian legacy media has. It's through the internet, and it's through YouTube and Rumble and X and Twitter and stuff like that. And this is a little mini victory in the culture battle, right?
And it is, because like people on YouTube aren't just automatically on the right or on the left or whatever. It's that people on YouTube, people who watch YouTube, are a little more critical about who they watch, and they can see everything.
Exactly.
They don't need to be spoon-fed information. They can actually watch stuff and make their own decisions on their own.
Yeah,
That's what legacy media doesn't realize.
that's right. And
That's why they're afraid of us, really.
Yeah, they are afraid, and they want to be the legacy media and our political class of different stripes, and these are left-wingers, but they want to avail themselves of technology and social media, but they want to be a protected class immune to criticism. But thanks to the internet and freedom of speech that's been
That we have so far still.
that we have to try to keep as long as we can, and we got it back a bit ever since Elon Musk bought bought Twitter, that we're able to criticize these guys, and it's very important for a democracy to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's definitely. And yeah, let's keep going on the timeline. Speaking of fat pigs,
I am honored.
this
Yeah.
is, of course, the beginning of the week. Doug Ford had decided that he was just going to harp more about how he was going to shut off the power to the United States in retaliation to Donald Trump's tariffs. So let's play a bit of his announcement.
To be here with Premier Ford as we take another step to tackle the uncertainty created by the threat of U.S. tariffs. By the on-again, off-again erratic shifts and changing goalposts of President Trump and his administration. Through it all, Premier Ford has been clear, I've done this before, guys, that Ontario will stand up and fight. And that includes taking our message directly to the American people, that we can be stronger together, that our economies are built on shared trade, investment, democratic values, and cooperation, that America directly benefits from Ontario's clean, reliable, and affordable electricity grid. For years, Ontario has exported power to the U.S., supporting jobs and businesses on both sides of the border. We've kept the lights on in American homes, in American factories and farms. But when we, as Canadians, are under attack, we will use every tool in our toolbox to fight back for the good of Ontario and Canada. And today we send that message, that Ontario workers can never be taken for granted, that if the United States chooses to target us, they will feel the pain and pressure too, and that is leadership. And that's why over the past days, we have worked to implement Ontario's plan to follow through on our Premier's commitment to stand up for our country and to fight back against this unjust attack on Canada's economy and sovereignty. And with that, it is my honor now to turn it over to the Premier, Doug Ford. Thank you so much.
Good job, bud. Well, good morning, everyone, and I just want to thank the Minister of Education, Minister Energy. I couldn't let that slide after calling me the President for that introduction. And thank you all for joining us here this morning. I want to begin by congratulating Mark Carney on winning last night's leadership race for the Liberal Party of Canada. It was
I think I played this out of sequence, but anyways, let's just keep playing it.
overwhelming win, actually. In doing so, Mark Carney will be our next Prime Minister. As Premier, I look forward to a renewed federal leadership, as well as time when we all sit down and have a great discussion. And it's never been more important to build big things here in Ontario and across our country, including and especially the Ring of Fire. To do so, the federal government needs to get out of our way. They need to get behind these nation-building projects so we can build a more prosperous and secure future for Canada. I also want to thank Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for his many years of service to Canada. You know, we didn't always agree, but when it mattered, Prime Minister Trudeau was always willing to put party and ideology aside for the good of the country. For weeks now, we've been faced with so much uncertainty coming from President Trump. Each day brings new tariff threats. Now, President Trump is threatening tariffs on steel and aluminum. He's pointing his finger at dairy and lumber, shifting timelines, different excuses, chaos and confusion. It's hurting workers, it's hurting businesses, it's hurting investments, and it's hurting families on both sides of the border. It needs to end. That's why I've been crystal clear. Until these tariffs are off the table, until the threat of tariffs is gone for good, Ontario will not relent. We will not back down. Pausing some tariffs, making last-minute exemptions, it won't cut it. We need to end the chaos once and for all. We need to sit down, work together, and land a fair deal. A deal that gives businesses the confidence to invest. A deal that gives workers the security they need and deserve. Until then, Ontario will keep up the fight. We will apply maximum pressure to maximize our leverage. That's why today we're moving forward with a 25% surcharge on electricity exports. For the 1.5 million American homes and businesses that Ontario powers, homes and businesses in Minnesota, Michigan, and New York. This surcharge will cost families and businesses in these states up to $400,000 each and every single day. On an average, this will add around $100 per month to the bills of hardworking Americans. Let me be clear, I will not hesitate to increase this charge. If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely. Believe me when I say I do not want to do this. I feel terrible for the American people because it's not the American people who started this trade war. It's one person who's responsible. That's President Trump. I'd rather be working together. I want to sell the US more energy, more electricity, more critical minerals. I want to make Canada and the United States the richest, most successful, safest, most secure two countries on the planet. But as Premier, my #1 job is to protect the people of Ontario and in hand protect the people of Canada. I will do whatever it takes. I will fight like I've never fought before to protect Ontario. Friends, none of this makes sense. Costly tariffs against your closest friends and allies do not make sense.
Anyways, so Doug has threatened 25% increase in tariffs, and apparently this was Monday. I probably got the dates wrong, but anyways, he kept talking about it throughout the week.
Yeah.
Anyways, so just thought we would just bring this up at this part of the timeline.
Oh yeah.
It was known that he was going to do this, and I think he even spoke about it when he won his re-election, I believe last week and stuff.
He did, yeah. Because we covered like sort of the prelude to this last week, and it was hilarious, right? Like Stephen Lecce there, the minister that spoke first. He used to be the Minister of Education, but he has since been shuffled to this new portfolio of energy and electricity, right?
I see.
And so, but yeah, like, I mean, I'm losing track of all the convoluted tariff, tit for tat, like war that's been going on, because it's really confusing. Like every day there's something new.
Well, on top of that, I mean, remember last week it was, we got confused a bit, because Donald Trump had said something about tariffs, and then of course he meant the reciprocal tariffs when he mentioned April 2nd, and so the tariffs were applied across the board, and then all of a sudden he negged on it. Still to be discussed why he negged on it, but apparently his reason was that they needed to figure things out especially when it comes to stuff like the automotive industry.
That's right.
Because, the industries were so entangled. There was constant back and forth across the border.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I have to constantly remind myself, at least, that, Donald Trump doesn't know everything, and
Yeah.
it's becoming a little more obvious that he's not aware of how things are so intertwined across the border, especially with us.
Yeah.
Well, so
Exactly. Like, I think some of that, the integrated nature of our economies and even like the energy grid and stuff like that has really, I have a feeling like when he met with some of the large automotive manufacturers before he put like that pause on tariffs in the auto industry, I think he met with some of the big auto manufacturers at the White House, and they probably impressed upon him how chaotic some of the tariffs will be, because as we've mentioned in past shows, just how integrated the automotive industry is between, where it's almost like between Canada and the United States, the border doesn't really exist as far as like the shipment of parts and all that stuff.
yeah, and it's not just a shipment of parts. It's like, on one side you have a sheet of metal and a sheet of aluminum. On the other side, they exchange places. They turn the sheet of metal and sheet of aluminum into, I don't know, some kind of holder, and then they assemble it on one side of the border. And this constant back and forth, as ridiculous as we might think it is, it all works out.
Yeah.
This is the way the industry works, and
Yeah.
that probably wasn't obvious to somebody like Donald Trump, whose business initially is just real estate.
That's right. Like I didn't think, he probably didn't realize just how integrated it was, as far as, like aluminum and steel, and the fact that Canada does provide specialized expertise, and
Right.
also like Canada does provide like a lot of aluminum and steel to the United States, which is used in the automotive industry and other industries. And so you've had this sort of like really confusing sort of implementation of tariffs, and then a walking back of tariffs, and then you've had this pushback from Doug Ford here, which talking about electricity surcharge and stuff like that. And I feel like I've been so ambivalent about this, because on the one hand, I don't want to see us get into this escalatory trade war with the Americans, and yet as a Canadian, I really felt that we needed to push back in some way. And I think we'll see later that, I mean, this pushback from Doug Ford actually garnered a little bit of respect from the president himself.
No, it's true. That's true. And I actually said in the last show, it's like how I thought it was kind of idiotic that he would shut the power, because he had talked about it, and then how that would lead into, well, the Americans will just refigure things out, and once they refigure things out and figure out where they're going to get this other power to replace the power from Ontario and Quebec, that they would no longer start buying electricity from Quebec. But then, as you can see later on, we'll get to it later on, because later on in the week it does escalate. I kind of start thinking otherwise, and we'll talk about it a little more later. And stuff.
Yeah, and just like I feel like, as much as I really like Donald Trump, I think that, as Weathers and I both grew up in the Canadian public education system, we know what schoolyard bullies are like, and every once in a while you have to stand up to the schoolyard bully. And and I think that's a case where, like Trump he's a man's man, and he respects someone when he shows a bit of strength, right? So, yeah. And I think that, despite my misgivings as well, I think Trump has like afforded Ford with a grudging modicum of respect, and maybe it'll lead to some, like, even, is it Lutnick, the Secretary for Commerce or whatever he is?
Yes. I forgot his first name, but yes, Lutnick.
Is Howard. It doesn't matter, but
Howard, that's it. Yes.
Yeah, Howard Lutnick was talking just before we came on air, he was talking on Fox about how that they want to lower the temperature between Ontario in particular and the White House. And I think Doug Ford and Donald Trump, if they do end up meeting in person, it'll be shake hands and okay, let's get down to business and actually talk about these things. And that's what has to happen at the federal level when we actually get a federal prime minister in there willing to talk to Trump about USMCA.
Yeah, and then once again, like even during this speech, he said that he wants to get back to talking, and that's something I actually haven't given him credit for, and all that. So
yeah, and I think that's really key to going forward. We have to sit down and talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Without
instead of just constantly yelling at each other and booing each other's anthems and whatnot. I
exactly.
When you step back and think about it, it's sort of like, why are we yelling at each other?
Yeah.
We shouldn't be yelling at each other.
And it's gotten really heated, right? Part of me thinks, like, I wonder to what extent, this is just me talking, like I was just speculating.
No,
I wonder if Trump, because Trump talks, like, I have a feeling Trump talks with Steve Bannon a lot. And Steve Bannon is really cognizant of the fact that, Canadians are nice people, but we have like this side of us that, in times of war and stuff that comes out, and we have this sort of like this toughness that is starting to come out more. And I wonder if Trump is trying to wake us up, and he's certainly, for better or for worse, he's definitely woke us up, I guess, like from our slumber that we've been in for the last decade.
Well, we've definitely been rudely awakened. I don't think I've ever seen so many, at least my friends around me, be so patriotic, as negative as it was, and misguided as it was,
And I wonder if it's like Trump 3D chess, like he wants to wake Canadians up. Wake up!
I like,
I don't know.
Because I kind of a little bit idolize him a little bit, but the thing is, like, it wouldn't surprise me either way, whether this is accidental or whether he is playing 3D chess.
Yeah.
Because what you got to realize, like, his background is real estate. He's just a businessman, and he's just doing what a businessman does.
That's right.
And things happen, and then you encounter different personalities, and you think on the fly and stuff, and sometimes you don't see everything.
Exactly.
I'm willing to actually say that, as much as I like what he's doing in the United States, cleaning up and everything, he can be wrong.
Yeah. And he's also has this uncanny willingness to like do these really kind of seemingly outlandish things, like to get a reaction and to shake the box and to he doesn't know necessarily how it's going to play out, but he's willing to take the chance, right? And it's pretty.
And once again, he's willing to try it out, but it also means that he could be wrong.
Yeah, he could be wrong.
And I'm becoming a little more aware of that, that maybe the things he's doing isn't the right way, but it's whatever,
And he's willing to make mistakes. It's very interesting. And yeah.
Anyways, as Doug Ford has alluded to, this happened on the Monday, and of course he alluded to the fact that there was a change in leadership, which is kind of the theme of this podcast at the moment. On Sunday, last Sunday, that's when we had I don't even know what to call it, the Liberal vote.
The
party or vote
the
ceremony or
I know
leadership. It was like, what? It's like, what do you call it?
Was it the Liberal Leadership Convention? Yeah, I guess it was the Liberal Leadership Convention.
Yeah, something like that.
Underway in Ottawa. Yeah, I just looked it up like really quickly. Yeah, the Liberal Leadership Convention. In Ottawa.
Okay, all right. So, here's a bit of what CBC had to say about it. I think Rosemary Burton speaks about like a bit of the voting conditions. Like I guess they had some kind of app where people have registered as sponsors or members of the Liberal Party get to vote who the leader is. And so I think even Mark Carney bragged about it. He had basically gotten a voting base of 400,000
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
people to vote in this race. So let's see what the CBC have to say about that.
We're expecting to find out who the next Liberal leader is. You know, there has been some problems with the voting process. Actually, it has been a little complicated in order to get people verified. There's obviously various levels of security that the Liberal Party has set up. So there have been lots of complaints about that. And the party has said that it will allow people to have their identity verified up until 11:59 tomorrow night. Things like, you know, the name that you submitted doesn't match the name that you have. So those are complications the party is dealing with, and that is problematic. Well, we're expecting.
Anyways, so I believe it is 400,000 that Mark Carney did brag about, but in the end, the amount of people that actually were regarded as valid votes was a third of that. It was something about 127,000 in the end.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yes, and obviously you're going to get, like Rosemary Barton was actually talking about, there was the whole thing about names being mismatched. And of course, people having names, like I heard this from somewhere else, that people had like these bogus names, you know, like I think there was even one who claimed he was Mark Carney.
right.
Boy,
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, you're gonna, and then of course, I believe there was even the I think a few weeks ago, especially when there were the other two candidates like Ruby Della, and there was this other Indian guy who couldn't speak French.
Chandra Arya.
Yes.
Yeah.
And apparently the pleb, another YouTuber that I follow, was talking about, you know, I think he took some time out to help in this Liberal race, even though he's very conservative, and actually registered as a Liberal, which you can do. You can register as a Liberal member to vote in this leadership race, like I did with Pierre Poilievre a few years ago. And so there were, you know, obvious people who had basically signed up in the Liberal Party to, you know, make sure that certain votes went a certain way.
Yeah.
That's expected. But I find it kind of weird that you go from 400,000 to 127,000 though.
That's right.
You know?
It just,
So,
there's some, it just doesn't
suspicious.
add up, right? It just doesn't add up.
You know, I expect maybe like
Yeah.
2/3, but a third, you know?
Yeah, and that it was Chris Sims was on with I think she's involved with the Canadian Taxpayer Federation. She was on with Candace Malcolm, and they were talking about this very issue as well on her show, talking about the problems with all the Liberal members voting for the Liberal leadership, and the numbers just weren't adding up, right? And a lot of people anecdotally were having troubles logging into the app, and they were getting disqualified for like little disparities in the way they entered their information and stuff like that. It would be really funny to if we could get any information eventually about cross-reference the people who had trouble with voting in the leadership race, and cross-reference that with who they intended to vote for. I don't know. That would be funny to see, but I don't think.
Yeah, another comment on that. This electrical voting, you know, is just crap.
It is.
You know,
it really.
You know,
is.
like countries. I mean, there are countries who do voting with paper even today, and they get it done within the day.
That's
you
right.
know. All this electronic crap, as far as we've come with technology, is crap. You know, it just leads to all kinds of holes that people could, you know, take advantage of and all that. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
No, exactly. Like the integrity of our voting system is, it's, you know, people are questioning it, right? And And even in this liberal leadership race, it seems like everybody that we were watching and listening to and reading in the independent media were convinced that this was going to be Mark Carney's coronation. And, and
Yeah,
it
that's right.
was. And what people feared would happen happened. And it was almost like this open secret that they were going to, by hook or by crook, put Carney in there. And, if they did some juking of the stats, as they say, as far as the votes were concerned, like, I wouldn't be
Leaning of the
surprised.
votes,
Yeah,
conveniently, like, let's dump all these votes.
exactly.
But
We've had instances of that in Canadian voting history where, like, there was some dodginess during referendums and during municipal elections, and it's getting to be more of an issue, even here in Canada.
Well, let's actually go to the actual day itself. So let's open up. Well, we have a few things that we can go through. For one, we get to hear from our soon-to-be, well, now our ex-prime minister. So let's see what he had to say during the ceremony.
As I look out across this room, I have just one question. How's the Liberal Party doing tonight?
Holy crap. What's he on?
Drunk.
Like,
oh my goodness.
What the hell?
What?
Grace.
Ella Grace, I know that these last few years haven't been easy for Sav.
Look at his eyes.
Adrienne, yourself.
Merci d'avoir été
Thank you
patient
for
avec moi.
having been
Yes.
patient with me, even when I was stressed, when I was traveling too much,
Quand j'arrivais pas à
when I
penser
Traveling
couldn't
too
think
much,
of
dude.
anything other than work.
Mais sachez
But please
que dans les
know
moments les plus
that in the most
difficiles,
difficult
He's had a
times,
lot too much to drink.
you inspired me.
vous qui m'avez donné
You
du
gave me.
Do you think he's actually relieved that he's no longer prime minister?
Probably. Yeah, I have a feeling he hated the job while he was doing it, except for the perks, of flying around and being a narcissistic bigwig. But, like, I feel like it just looks like he's like under the influence of something here. That's just my opinion, but anyway.
Well, I'm just looking at him and the way he speaks and his voice and everything, and it's like, yeah, this guy. I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, it's finally over, so you'd be on two kinds of emotions, really, like the sadness of not having your job anymore, and then, of course, the relief that you don't have to, constantly face all the detractors and all the nasty words online of not having to deal with Donald Trump.
That's right.
Justin.
Justin.
Drew map.
I drew a map. You should see it. I can get you a job at Tim Hortons. I know. Exactly. That was going to be my word as well, like the relief of not having to deal with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know what he'll do. I don't think he'll go back to teaching. That's just my guess. Because that's what he was doing before all this.
Yeah. He'll end up somewhere. He'll end up in one of those, like, paid sinecures where he just, he has some lofty job title, but he won't have to do any work, right? Kind of like what he did when he was prime minister.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, like, a lot of these people who run for prime minister usually have some kind of attachment to some kind of law type of job, or a government type of job, or maybe military type of job. What do you do if you're a teacher? Because he can't really teach again.
No,
I mean, he wouldn't be able to go to a classroom and teach because he would have to be in constant guard.
Yeah, like, I can't see him going back to teaching. They'll have some sort of cushy gig for him somewhere. I mean, who knows?
So cushy by, putting you in an office to stare at a wall like the Japanese do.
Yeah, exactly. They'll give him like, those, like, kinetic sculptures on his desk, and you can just play with that all day.
That just seems sad.
Yeah,
Well,
but he'll end up like in a back room somewhere consulting for the Liberal Party. Who knows?
I don't know if I want to play the rest of his deal, but let me play at least the next highlight of the whole deal. of the whole. What's it called again? What do we call it?
The Liberal
Conference.
Leadership Convention.
Convention. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play that. I guess the next major big deal star would be the man from Shawinigan himself.
Oh yes, Jean Chretien.
Jean Chretien. Man, he's old.
He is. I think he's like 9.
I voted for him. Yeah, you're right. But I voted for him.
There he is.
He looks like Mr. Burns, man.
He does.
Like even the spots on his head.
Trudeau. Prime Minister
Oh
Trudeau.
my God.
Candidates. Monsieur le Président du Parti. President of the party.
Ministres et députés.
Ministers and MPs.
Chers compatriotes, bonsoir.
Good evening.
C'est une occasion exceptionnelle
This is
d'être
an
avec vous
exceptional
ce soir.
opportunity for me to be here this evening.
Il s'agit de ma 9e convention du Parti libéral à laquelle je participe.
Wow, he sat through 9 of them.
Et c'est la 7e fois
long time in politics,
que je m'avance au podium.
That I've spoken at the podium.
Even before prime ministership, I believe he was like some kind of minister of some type.
Yeah, under Pierre Trudeau.
At 91.
Yeah.
Et toujours prêt à me battre.
I'm still ready to fight. I have fight in me yet.
It's great to see so many young people in the room today. It reminds me of my first Liberal convention when I was the president of the Young Liberals at Laval University.
Wow.
In 1958, when Lester Pearson was elected Liberal leader.
Holy crap.
Wow.
I didn't even realize that. Lester B. Pearson.
1958. Oh
Not
my
many
God.
of you were born. And he then became a very good prime minister. I have kept coming to Liberal Convention for 68 years. I have kept coming back to Liberal Convention because of what the Liberal Party stands for. I have kept coming back because of what the Liberal Party has delivered to make the lives of Canadians better. And I am here today because it is the Liberal Party that can best deliver the better lives for Canadians in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead.
So
That's amazing that when you think of it, when we talked about like the people that actually attended this event, this which was in downtown Ottawa, there was something like 2,000 people. And Jean Chretien is talking about, look at all the young people, but it didn't draw that many people when you think of it. I mean, you have a former prime minister, Chrétien's there. They're essentially like choosing the next prime minister. They didn't. I mean, you would think that they would be turning people away at the door, but they only got 2,000 people. And
no, it's true. It's true.
And Pierre Poilievre had a rally at the same time, the very same day in London, Ontario, I think it was, and they drew more people.
No, it was in Ottawa. It was in Ottawa.
I thought. No, like this was in Ottawa here, but I thought Pierre Poilievre had his event
was in Ottawa as well.
I thought it was in London.
It was in Ottawa as well. No, it was in Ottawa, from what I heard. I mean, you can look it up.
Yeah,
I think.
But yeah, like the disparity between like Pierre's event and this Liberal event. I mean, they're just not getting the people. I think it's a pipe dream. Like it's an illusion, the widespread support that the Liberals have. I don't think it's really true.
Well, I don't think it's the same because I know, look, I wasn't into politics back then, but the thing is that back then, I honestly believe that the Liberals really represented what Canadians were about at one point. And that was the time of like John Chretien and everyone before him, before
Mhm.
his prime ministership. Now they've gone like totally socialist
Yes.
and all that.
Yeah.
And this is a different Liberal Party. And I think we've talked a bit about it before the show and all that. And I think there's later on, we have a few, when we start playing some more clips regarding Mark Carney, there's some clips on the Candace Malcolm show where she interviews an ex-Liberal minister or somebody who was in the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
Long before the change. And he even says that the party is different. And maybe that's why I'm so confused sometimes when I look at the Liberals today and I keep thinking, it's like, how did I used to vote for these people?
Yeah.
You know?
And and it's interesting that people remember Ruby Dalla, that the candidate that was disqualified from the leadership race, said overtly several times during her bid for to be one of the candidates. She said that she was keen on bringing the Liberal Party back from the far left into the center. And I think, we have seen that radicalization of the Liberal Party under Justin Trudeau. And it's really uncanny how it's played out so it's so reminiscent of Hillary Clinton's campaign in leading up to 2016 or Kamala
even the
Harris,
last one.
or even the last one,
Yes.
Kamala Harris's campaign. It's the same formula, right? And Weathers and I talked about this before we went to air, that it's in the case of Clinton, Harris, and even Carney here, they relied a lot on the mainstream legacy media, both respectively in the States and Canada, to push the message very hard. And they weren't relying on mass rallies. It was almost, elite sentiment pushing the narrative, whereas Trump used social media in the form of Twitter and mass rallies, and you can see the difference between populism and this kind of this elite style of campaign. And I think this is very much reflective of that difference.
Well, I think that's, when I think about it, that's why like the people around me and my family, they're still very staunch Liberals, even though I keep telling them that this is not the same party.
No, it's been radicalized to the point where, it's taken on this this globalist leftist radicalism that we've seen play out over the last 9.5 years, 10 years, right? Yeah.
No, it was to the point where like I couldn't bring myself to vote for them anymore. I didn't really and that's why I'm confused when it comes to the Liberal Party, because I keep asking myself, how did I vote for these people, like I said? And I have to keep reminding myself this is not the same party I might have voted for back then.
Yeah.
Who were more about being centrist,
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see Chretien here, because Chretien, I didn't like Chretien at the time, but looking back, when I actually looked at what he did, despite like his different scandals and stuff, Chretien made the effort to entrench some of the very conservative notions about, our constitution, about the monarchy, and about even his fiscal policies. When I think Paul Martin was the finance minister, where they took like those fiscal steps to really right the fiscal ship, albeit on the backs of the provinces. I think under Chretien, a lot of the transfer payments, but Chretien, despite being a Liberal in name, he was more conservative in action. The way he tried to even like ad scam, like the scandal that the Gomery inquiry went into, was actually one of those money schemes that was actually used to try to promote Canadian nationalism in Quebec, despite
you're right,
failures of execution. he was actually more conservative than the Trudeau Liberals will ever have been, right? I mean, the Trudeau Liberals were completely radical. And it's interesting to see Chretien speaking here.
No, true.
His track record, right? But yeah, like he's a dyed-in-the-wool, like long-time Liberal. So
let's bring up the actual results part of the I keep forgetting what is this called again? Convention?
the Liberal Leadership Convention, yeah.
Convention. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So
that was
let's
held
bring
in
up the
Ottawa
actual.
on Sunday.
Let's bring up the results. So this is the results.
Now, who's ready?
Woo!
Are you ready?
Now it's the moment to announce our new leader. Maintenant, c'est le moment d'annoncer notre nouveau chef ou notre nouvelle chef.
Now, time to announce our new leader.
To hand me the results, I'm happy to invite on stage Beatrice Keller-Rafoul, who has been serving as the Chief Electoral Officer for the vote.
It's like Miss Universe, you know, they always call that other person who's supposed to be the legit person and all that.
Yeah.
Notice that?
Yeah, it's almost like to give it integrity or trying to make it look like it was, yeah.
And has worked to protect the integrity of the process. Beatrice, over to you.
He actually has to read through them, although he probably already knows.
Exactly. We already figured this out like weeks ago.
Receive more than 50% of the points allocated in a ballot to win. The following are the results of the first ballot with 151,899 votes cast.
This is for Frank Baylis, I believe.
Yeah.
In fourth place, Frank Baylis with 4,038 votes, resulting in 1,014 allocated points, representing 3% of the vote.
I honestly thought he should have done better.
Yeah, that's not very many votes at all, is it?
In third place, Karina Gould with 4,785 votes, resulting in 1,100 allocated points, representing.
I really honestly thought Frank Baylis won the debate.
Vote.
Yeah, like he seemed pretty reasonable to me. Like she looked kind of crestfallen there. She was like, "Oh."
With 11,134 votes, resulting in 2,729 allocated points, representing 8% of the vote. In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, with 131,674 votes, resulting in 29,457 allocated points, representing 85.9% of the vote.
Wow.
85.9% of the votes.
Yeah. And those
for a guy who we didn't even know about, well, at least I didn't, till like 6 months ago.
Oh yeah, like nobody knew anything about the guy. We still don't. We know more now thanks to some digging. But yeah, and those vote totals did not add up to 400,000 plus prospective voters that they were talking about. I mean, what?
No, well, like I said, it was a third of the 400,000 votes that Mark Carney did brag about.
Yeah.
You know?
And people are starting to ask questions about how this process actually went, and was it actually like was the process on the up and up, and people are starting to question the validity of the vote. But the problem is we can't do anything about it.
No, because it's just a Liberal Party thing, and nobody wants to really question it. And like I honestly thought, if anything, Chrystia Freeland should have done better.
Yeah, you would think that she would have, right? Because we saw her in front of the cameras for months, like on a regular basis. she was like nicknamed like the minister for everything because she was always doing all sorts of stuff that Trudeau refused to do, and she had multiple high-profile portfolios because she was everywhere all the time. But she had a falling out with Trudeau in December, January, post Trudeau's meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and I think she never recovered from that, and the long knives are out for her. I think she'll land on her feet, of course. She may even have a senior position in the cabinet, in Carney's cabinet, but yeah, that's really surprising.
Well, well, it's surprising for a lot of reasons. Here's liberals supposed to be kind of leftist, kind of feminine, if you want me to put it out there.
Yeah.
You think that how did this white banker win the Liberal Party leadership?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going on the Liberal values, you would have thought that somebody like Freeland would have won because she's female, or
Mhm.
Bayless would have won because he's actually half black and French.
Yeah. And that's a legitimate point to make, because the Liberal Party is very interesting, because oftentimes, depending on internal party politics, they have no trouble throwing women or minorities under the bus if it suits the party's interest, right? And it doesn't seem to hurt them at all. Like when Jody Wilson-Raybould was thrown out of caucus because she had a fight with Justin Trudeau vis-a-vis SNC-Lavalin. I mean, she's Aboriginal. She was, a woman, and they had no qualms about, pulling the long knives out for her or any of these other people, right? But
or even the fact that at one point Justin Trudeau had elbowed a woman in the chest from the NDP party.
Exactly.
It's like
Exactly. Like it's amazing how the hypocrisy, when it rears its ugly head, doesn't seem to affect the Liberal Party at all. Like, just they just have such power over the country and over their membership, and it's really quite astonishing. And even if you tell people who are staunch Liberal voters who have no affiliation with the party at all, they'll just dismiss it. They don't even see it. They don't even think it's a problem, right? But
or even the other facts about Carney, surrounding Carney, like one, he's hasn't lived here for the past 10 years. He's only really moved back since last year. The man doesn't even have a riding.
No.
It was never voted in. You have all these Canadians worried about foreigners coming in and taking over the country and stuff, and here they are. Yeah, let's sign him on, man.
Yeah. And he has no charisma. He's an empty suit. And yet, like, here he is, this minuscule sliver of even the Liberal Party itself, essentially put him into the to be our next prime minister. And it's really amazing. It's like he despite his foibles, his flaws, he is going to be sworn in as our next prime minister, because the apparatus of the Liberal Party, and arguably some of the forces even above the Liberal Party, because of his WEF affiliations with the World Economic Forum and all the rest of it, wanted him in there. And here he is. Everything that the independent media has been predicting about his win has come to pass, right? It's going according to plan for them.
It's going according to plan, man. So
it's amazing.
Let's bring up his acceptance speech.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, which we struggled with this morning, trying to go through our media and stuff.
Yes.
It's
hard to listen to.
Yeah. I think when we started looking at our clips, I think we somewhere in between we switched to this other podcaster's take.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Oh my goodness. Just to get through it. Yeah. Oh my
All
god.
those people who are into the YouTuber Nuxanor, awesome takes on everything. He's a blue retard. He literally calls himself a blue retard. And he's a VTuber, not a YouTuber. He's a VTuber, a literal cartoon character. And we had to use his take to just go over this clip so we can actually prepare for commenting on. And actually, I still don't have any comments. So let's just play. What's with the music, man?
It's really like pretty hokey.
Prime Minister, I think it's clear we should just skip a generation. Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Wow. This room is strong. This room is Canada strong. Thank you, Cleo. Thank you, Cleo. And to my wife, Diana, our children, Cleo, Tess, Amelia, and Sasha. Without your support, I wouldn't be standing here.
They had to figure out that they had to clap at this point, you know?
Yeah. Everybody's like, it's like Jeb Bush. Please
Without
clap.
your examples, I wouldn't have a purpose. And
what does that mean? I mean, asked you this morning. What did he mean by that,
without
man?
your love,
I don't know. Like,
I wouldn't have this.
He hasn't said
I
anything.
need for what lies ahead.
Oh my god. He's such an empty suit. I mean, oh my goodness. He has no charisma at all.
He's supposed to represent the dynamic, the forward-thinking, the leftist Liberal Party.
That's right.
And he's a bank administrator. You know, that's his experience. He hasn't even worked in politics. Doesn't have the writing. It's like
and it's so flat. He has no stage presence. He is like, he's so boring and he's awkward. And you know, I think
Drunk Trudeau was a lot more entertaining than this dude.
Yeah, like Chretien
know?
was so much more entertaining than this guy. Like he and so many of the clips that we've seen over the last few weeks of Carney, like he doesn't get better. Even when he's supposed to be talking about subjects he's supposed to be well versed in, he's not good. I'm starting to think, like, you know, he's been promoted to the level of his own incompetence. Like he's not. This is really painful to watch, you know.
That's what we call failing upwards.
Failing upwards, exactly. Oh man. Oh, this is
I'm
so
almost
painful.
willing to, like, you know, I think we've seen enough of the speech because it doesn't get any better
Yeah.
from this point on.
Agreed.
And
It's so bad.
he talks a lot about hockey and his hockey coach, and then even quotes a guy we don't even know, some Bob dude, you know.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember that? Like,
Yeah.
I'm surprised I even remember that because I don't even know who this Bob dude was about.
Yeah, it's like, who's this Bob guy? What is he talking about? Yeah,
And then for somewhere around, let's say this point, like on, so let's say about the rest of the 2/3 from the 1/3 is all about trashing Polyev, all about trashing Donald Trump, which whatever, but nothing about. You guys can look this up. You guys can watch the video because I don't think I want to subject poor Mikerowaveable to watching this again.
It's so painful. It's not like it's really in stark contrast to the really rousing like speech that Pierre Poilievre did at his rally a few weeks
we'll bring
back,
that up.
right?
But I mean, like you said, watching Chretien was a lot more entertaining than watching this guy.
Yeah,
And even drunk Trudeau was a lot more entertaining than this guy.
I know. It's
You know, as much as I don't like Trudeau, he's a very good speaker. You know,
yeah, it's bad. If we can say that Trudeau was more entertaining than this guy, that is a huge insult and red flag. Like, Oh, this guy is boring as toast, and he's just he has no charisma whatsoever. He's not an inspiring figure. No, not at all.
No, you know what? I'm gonna switch. And like we said initially, during the same time of the convention, the Liberal Leadership Convention, I
Yeah.
get that straight. Polyev was. Did you look that up? Was he in,
Yeah,
was he in London
it was
or
in
Ottawa?
London. It was in London, yeah.
Okay, all
On
right. So
Sunday.
it was in London on Sunday.
But yeah,
At the
and
same time.
yeah,
Let me
at the
bring it up.
same time, and from what Chris Sims was saying when she was on with Kenneth Malcolm, like the venue in London, Ontario, wasn't exactly in a posh area of town, and yet he got a bigger crowd than the Liberals had in Ottawa, and that's saying something. And I think it's very much in line with the populism of Polliver. You know, much like, I'm not saying it's on the same scale as Trump, but Trump had that
No.
populist energy, whereas, you know, like people like Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Mark Carney, you know, they don't have any of that at all. It's a different it's a different style of political movement for sure.
I'll even play 6 minutes of the rally, the Canada First rally at Polyev at the same time in London, Ontario, as this convention.
Awesome.
So let me bring it up. I think we need a pick me up, so we'll listen.
Yeah,
to it
yeah,
here for a bit.
exactly.
Right. So now our Liberal friends, after they've caused all this damage, are going to pull a sneaky trick tonight. They're going to try to get elected for a 4th term.
I'd like to say that that's our fault. Like, why do we keep voting for this? Like, I stopped voting at least the 2nd time and all that. Why we keep voting for the Liberals, I have no idea.
A 4th term by replacing Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor, Mark Carney. Carney's advice drove up taxes, housing costs, and food prices, while he personally profited from moving billions of dollars and thousands of jobs out of Canada to the United States.
That's true.
Yeah, and then during Carney's speech, whenever he took digs at Donald Trump, whatever. I mean, those were justified, whatever. A lot of Canadians are pissed off. I don't blame them. But when it came to taking digs at Polyev, he outright lied.
He did.
About the things he was saying about Polyev and where he stands on certain things and all that.
And we're getting to the more we learn about Mark Carney, the more we're having, like, I know I'm having misgivings about everything he says almost, because he's lied multiple times about his affiliations with Brookfield Asset Management, his past, his role during the 2008 financial crisis, all sorts of stuff, right? And it's hard to take him at his word.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, and we can keep going with this. Hang on.
Working for Trudeau, Carney made Canada weaker and poorer.
Yep.
Working for himself, Carney made the United States richer and stronger. And for the first time in our history, Canada will have a sneaky prime minister with millions of dollars of financial interests that go directly against our national interest. And make no mistake, Donald Trump will have a big smile on his face as he exploits all of Carney's many conflicts to attack Canadian workers and Canadian jobs. But we Conservatives won't let either of them do it. We will put Canada first.
Yeah. And whether it's just I was just gonna say that, like, Pierre Polliver is making reference to Mark Carney's move when Mark Carney was with Brookfield Asset Management. Brookfield Asset Management, he was on the board, right? When Brookfield moved its headquarters from wherever it was in Canada to New York City, I believe. And
he constantly lied about that,
and
too.
he lied about it, right? and that's one of those glaring hypocritical things that Carney has done, and he did that in light of pending tariffs, and he also he lied about it. He said he wasn't responsible, but he was a member of the board when that move took place, and I think there's even correspondence that the independent media got a hold of saying that like what he said is not in line with what actually happened. So
we actually have a video on that, but I mean, like
Yeah.
on that, it's just that if anybody lies as much as he does, it says how much he respects your intelligence
That's right.
or the
And
intelligence of the Canadian population.
yeah, and the fact that the legacy media was completely MIA when it comes to actually digging up some actual facts about Carney's past, and it took the independent media to dig up stuff about his potential conflicts of interest, and also the Conservative Party MP Michael Barrett, who is like the shadow minister for ethics and governance or something, and he's been having these press conference about the thing about prorogation is that Carney was not subjected to these conflict of interest checks that would otherwise have been made if Parliament was sitting, right? And also like Stephen Harper, Prime Minister, he had to come out publicly and talk about some of the things that Carney had been pushing forward about his role during the financial crisis when he was at the Bank of Canada, because he's really bigged up his role during that time, and it's not accurate, especially in light of what Jim Flaherty was doing as Harper's Minister of Finance at that time, right? So there's all sorts of falsehoods, all sorts of ethical questions surrounding Carney that just hasn't gotten the same play in the mainstream press, right?
No. Anyways, I mean, we can go on with this, but we pretty much know what Pierre is saying. He's basically repeating the same message he did during his Flag Day convention or rally. I mean,
and the crowd is more energized here, and he's getting more feedback from the crowd, and it's bigger.
And once again, this crowd is supposed to be way bigger than the crowd at the Liberal convention.
Yeah,
it was happening at the same time. So
there's this different atmosphere.
No, I mean, I hope when we do get an election, I hope that is the true status of Canada, that there's more of us, these people who are for Canada, a freer Canada, than the people who are sitting at the Liberal leadership convention, because
I hope for that too. Do you know what just came to mind? I remember independent journalist Cian Bexley, who is now with Juno News and Candace Malcolm. He did this really good like compare and contrast investigative thing. We were comparing Canada Day under Stephen Harper and how energetic and fun it was, and Canada Day celebrations, quote unquote, under Justin Trudeau, and it was a completely different atmosphere. Harper's Canada Day was energetic and fun, and there's fly pasts and all this stuff. And like Justin Trudeau, the atmosphere was like their dog died, and it was like, and that's the impression I got from the energy at Pierre's rally, and the sort of really sterile, listless, like boring atmosphere at the Liberal leadership convention, aside from maybe like a Chrétien's speech. Like I got that contrast.
No, you're right. I mean, we could just feel it right there with the Poilievre, just with the minute we played of Poilievre's speech right there. I mean, and on top of that, I also want to really hammer home the fact that he didn't lie in any of his speeches at all.
No.
He pretty much straight out told you what he was thinking, of what he wanted to do, and reminded people what the Liberals were about and how they were responsible for bringing us to where we were, or where we are right now.
Exactly.
So, anyways, the next day, of course, is Monday, and right away, Carney's at the Parliament, and this is his first day.
Just had a long meeting with the Prime Minister. We discussed the most important issues for our country, obviously including Canada and U.S. relations, issues of national security.
The dude's not wearing Canadian flag, man. What is that on his lapel? What the fuck, man?
I don't even know. I can't even.
It looks like some hexagon thing or a flower or something. I mean, the guy is literally the Prime Minister. He should be wearing a Canadian flag.
Yep.
I don't know. That's just me.
And
well spotted.
Yes, the transition between the Prime Minister and myself, that transition will be seamless and it will be quick. Finally, I, as you may have heard, just had a meeting.
He's a little awkward
with the
too,
caucus.
like you said.
He really
tremendous
is.
energy in the Liberal caucus. As you saw last evening, this is a united party with full of energy to serve Canadians.
I just wanted to about Donald Trump.
Okay, sorry. I'll say.
What would you say?
First thing, I'm sure he's not going to sign an order directed at me, David. With respect to President Trump, I'm not yet Prime Minister. His interlocutor is Prime Minister Trudeau, and I look forward to the opportunity.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
I know, right? Like, so there's still. I think this week. I think we'll see the formal swearing in of Mark Carney at some point before the week is out. That's my impression, anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right on that. But I mean, like the other thing, I guess I wanted to bring here. I couldn't find a really good video to kind of like detail this, but he started basically, pointing at people who would be part of his interim cabinet if he were to call an election. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on Liberals at this point in the current Liberal Party, but from what I've heard, he's basically hiring a lot of exiled Liberals from Justin Trudeau's cabinet.
Yeah.
I believe his right-hand man is what's his name?
Mendocino.
Mendocino, and he was the one who somehow was responsible for pulling the trigger on the Emergencies Act during the trucker.
That is true. Like he was
protests.
Yeah, and he's definitely implicated in that, and that's something that we should.
He's the guy who took the fall for Trudeau.
That's right.
Much, right?
Yeah, like because he was basically I think he was relegated to the private sector. I think he was. Yeah, he was in exile after that. I think he had to step down or something. I can't remember exactly, but he was implicated in the convoluted and sinister justifications to invoke the Emergencies Act back during the Freedom Convoy in 2022, and now he's back. He's going to be part of Carney's cabinet, right?
Well, he's the top dude. He's like the whip or whatever you want to call it.
And that's bad, because I mean, we shouldn't have such short memories. We should be holding these guys to account, at the very least, at the ballot box for doing things that were really against Canadian citizens, stuff that authoritarian stuff that shouldn't even have happened. And it's going to be more of the same with Carney's new ministry going forward. It's going to be more of this globalist leftist authoritarianism that we don't need in our country. But sure enough, here we are again.
Of course, the other person I did hear about who's being I guess might be brought back into the cabinet was the speaker who apparently invited the Nazi.
Yes.
While Zelensky was here, I believe, right?
Yeah, that was one of those things. Another Liberal scandal, right? Where he was they didn't properly vet this guest that the Liberal Party had, and it turned out like he was part of one of the Waffen SS units that fought in the Second World War, and they had him in in Parliament, in the House of Commons, and the Speaker stepped down. Right, he was the fall guy for that faux pas.
No, again, bringing back all the fall guys. And it's like, what the hell, man?
I know, it's like we have short memories, right? And
they
don't, and the Liberal Party has so much power in our country that they can do these things almost with impunity, right? Like there's no consequences. The only consequences that we can see happening is hopefully at the ballot box if we have an election.
I think it's becoming more and more apparent that there is going to be an election, and I think the talk is that because apparently in the polls the Liberals are gaining, if not leading again, versus the Conservatives. That, I mean, you can see it right here. The longer this man, Carney, starts talking and people start seeing how he really is, the less of a chance he has to actually win the next election. So the sooner they can get him voted in, and signed in, given a mandate, because right now this Prime Minister has no mandate of the people, the better for the Liberals, really.
The trouble with that is, like, he has to campaign. He's going to be the face of the campaign, and hopefully, like, he's his wooden, terrible self on the campaign trail. Like, I just, I could see the Liberal Party pushing it back to October, and not like having the snap election.
But like I said,
if they can
the longer you see more of Carney, the most likely people won't vote for him.
Yeah, but
unless he pulls some miracle out of his butt.
Well, and then I would say that same argument holds true for him on the if they have him out there on the campaign trail. He's such a liability that I could see him without a mandate, just pushing back the election date. Just, I don't know, I guess we'll see what happens, right?
Either way, he still has to campaign, whether it's now or October.
Yeah,
I mean, but the thing is, if in October he would have all this year where people will not only have to see him campaign, but also have to wonder, like, why the heck did he push it so long? And actually seeing him in the role of Prime Minister for that long.
That's a legitimate argument. That's a legitimate argument, and that just in my mind, I wouldn't put it past the Liberals.
No, right.
Making another deal with the NDP, and Jagmeet Singh has been public about his support for Carney. Like he said some things like over the last few weeks where he'd be like, no, I'd be willing to support the Liberals in like propping up the government, doing what he's been doing for the last.
His deal this time is that he's blaming it on, he wants to see guarantees for workers, and he's not going to vote a vote of non-confidence if he's not promised this. Of course, he has something to scapegoat things to why he's resisting again, or basically sucking cock.
Exactly.
Of the Liberals.
I know.
That's just my opinion, but
no, it's a valid opinion, and it's one of those scenarios that could come to pass, and I guess we'll see what happens in the next few weeks, like what actually happens. So
anyways, going more on our timeline, further on timeline, since we're getting to almost the end of the show anyways, we should speed along. Let's go back to our favorite, your minister, your provincial minister, Mr. Ford.
Yes,
I see that.
Dodgy.
Because Ford found out.
Yeah.
So here he is.
Well, just a little while ago, I had an opportunity to speak to Secretary Lutnick. And Secretary Lutnick has sent out an olive branch to us to come down and immediately meet with him, meet with the whole trade administration, and discuss the future. Rather than waiting till April the 2nd, threats going back and forth, tit for tat, I've agreed to suspend temporarily, and we always have that tool in our toolkit, until we sit down.
Why does it keep saying that?
Over the next day or two. I'll be heading down to Washington along with Dominic LeBlanc, and we'll have a good discussion. You know, with any negotiation that we have, there's a point that both parties are heated and the temperature needs to come down. And I thought this was the right decision. They understand how serious we are about the electricity and the tariffs. And rather than going back and forth and having threats to each other, we have both agreed, let cooler heads prevail. We need to sit down and move this forward. This is a massive, massive deal, the USMCA, which the federal government will be leading the charge. I'll be sitting down with all our premiers tomorrow as well and discussing this and their issues as well. So we're going to go down there and we're going to go down there with confidence. We're going to.
Anyways, yes.
Yeah.
So this was in response to basically over the weekend, I believe, Donald Trump finally saw what Ford was basically talking about applying the 25% export
surcharge, I guess, for electricity.
Surcharge, or what do you want to call it? And the possibility that he would actually go to the lengths of pulling the plug on the electricity that the states, Michigan, New York, a lot of actually blue, left-leaning states would suffer. And so in response to that, Donald Trump had basically said he was going to slap even more tariffs on the existing 25 on steel and aluminum.
Yeah.
Which would, of course, be very devastating to the automotive industries, which are very prevalent in Ontario, which is Doug Ford's province.
That's right.
And it was basically going into escalation mode, basically.
Yeah, it was like, whoop. And yeah, it was getting really heated. And it's interesting, like it's almost like they're like, okay, this is getting out of control, and they just both, okay, we're gonna have to sit down and we're gonna have to talk. And that's what really needs to happen. And it's interesting how, to Ford's credit, like he pushed back and there was the response from the Americans, but now it's gonna cool and they're actually going to speak. They're actually going to get into a discussion. And that's what needs to happen more and more, because we've had a complete absence of that from the people at the federal level. Like Trudeau did everything in his power to avoid any of this negotiation type stuff. He did some last minute things because he was forced to. But yeah, this is an interesting development. And I think Trump, even in one of his clips, was even giving Ford some credit for standing up. And so I think this is actually a positive development in many ways.
It is. And initially I didn't give him any credit for it. I thought it was basically a FAFO situation, fucked around, found out.
Yeah.
And
like me too.
It was like now you're really pissed off the bear. I mean,
yeah.
At first that was my reaction. It's like, oh yeah, it's just you've lost control and things are going out of control. And then I saw this take by Brian Lilly. Where did I put that?
Yeah.
Which was actually kind of made me reconsider. And you too as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Yeah.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford retaliates against the U.S. tariffs with his province's electricity. Meanwhile, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith in Texas rubbing elbows with America's top energy figureheads, and an election could be called very, very soon, as early as this weekend. Here to discuss it all is federal political commentator Brian Lilly of the Toronto Sun. Brian, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. There's not much going on in politics these days. I'm not sure what we're going to discuss.
We have nothing to talk about here.
He's really good. I mean, he's from the Toronto Sun, I believe, Brian Lilly, and all that.
Yeah.
If any, I mean, I think he does very consistent, very, straight to the point reporting of situations, and he has very level-headed takes on everything. I mean, he was basically the one who was interviewing Steve Bannon a few episodes ago.
That's right.
And he has a lot of connections to United States personalities and media, because I believe he worked with Steve Bannon on some publication at one point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all that. But yes, anyways, I find a lot of Lily's takes are very level-headed. So, anyways.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so Brian, Donald Trump, it's strange that we would start with him, but Donald Trump has noticed the moves from Ontario Premier Doug Ford to retaliate against American tariffs. So Trump is now promising to impose 50% tariffs on aluminum and steel, hitting companies like Atlas Steel in Edmonton. So Brian, it seems like we are at the start of an all-out trade war here.
Yeah, and it's important for Canadians to remember that it was not Doug Ford that started this. It was nobody in Canada that started this. It was Donald Trump. He imposed the tariffs last week. He paused some, but not all of them, threatened to bring in more tariffs, perhaps today on lumber and dairy. And of course, tomorrow, more tariffs on steel and aluminum. Now it's going to be 50% instead of 25%. Why? Because Ontario said there's two moves that Ontario has made. And of course, being a provincial government, they are not able to impose tariffs, but they did make two moves that have caught the attention of the Americans. One, they removed all American alcohol products from the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. It's not only the retailer, it's the wholesaler for every bar and restaurant that serves alcohol in the province, which makes it either one of the biggest or the biggest purchaser of beverage alcohol in the world. More than $1 billion of U.S. products, 3,600 different brands that are distributed, and so that's a major move. But then Ontario also provides electricity to about 1.5 million homes in Minnesota, Michigan, and New York State. And Doug Ford said, you know what, this guy, Trump, is not going to back down on his tariffs. He's still threatening us. And so we're going to put a 25% surcharge. It's kind of an export tariff on electricity going to the United States. Still doesn't make it unaffordable for the Americans to buy our electricity, but he is saying that he will ramp up if need be and will ultimately consider cutting the power off if Trump continues to push forward with tariffs. This is one of the only things, Jeanette, that has broken through. Last week when Ford was threatening this, you suddenly started seeing American conservative and Republican commentators pausing and saying, oh, wow, this is serious. This is something big. But it was late last night that Donald Trump responded on Truth Social. So I'm going to read off my phone. Hopefully you guys can put this up on screen. And Trump, laid out what he's going to do. He said, based on Ontario, Canada placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States, I have instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. He goes on ranting for quite a bit, saying that we subsidize Canada and we shouldn't be doing that, and that Canada should be part of the United States. Later on Tuesday, did another post saying, why would we ever allow another country to provide our electricity, and we have to change this? So look, Trump doesn't realize how integrated our economies have been going back more than a century, and he is just furious that anyone is standing up to him. And I know some Canadians think that this is a dumb move, but with Donald Trump, if you respond with weakness, you get another beating.
Yeah.
And it also turns out that if you respond with strength, he's going to threaten another beating. But at least he's acknowledging something is happening here and is looking to, I don't know, hopefully maybe find a way out.
So yeah, I it changed my mind. I mean, at first I thought Ford was an idiot for challenging Trump, but then I forgot, like, you don't approach Trump in weakness. You have to approach him with strength, and that's what Ford did.
Yeah, and I think that's like Stephen Harper had an op-ed in, I think, the National Post, was it last week or the week before, and he was saying, no, we have to push back in some ways just to, give ourselves a chance when negotiations, reconvene, when the federal government finally gets its act together, because they can't be going to sit down and renegotiate the provisions in the USMCA from a standpoint of complete and utter weakness. There has to be some sort of pushback. And yeah, to Ford's credit, and to Trump's credit as well, like they both recognize the fact that there will be a price to pay on both sides of the border if this continues. And it's almost like it's almost like a good analogy might be like the notion of like an ice hockey fist fight, right? Where things are getting out of hand on the ice, and in a way to control the violence, there's a fist fight, and then things it's like a way of diffusing the situation. And it's almost like that from both Lutnick and Ford, we both saw them say that this ceasefire of sorts has really brought the temperature down, like cool heads are going to prevail, and they're actually going to sit down and talk about these things like in a respectful way.
They're going to renegotiate the trade deal between Mexico, Canada, and the United States, which I think ultimately that's really what Trump wants.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. And Trump has been pushing really, really hard ever since he got in for advantage on a number of fronts, right, including USMCA. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And Trump has to know that Canada is not going to be a walkover as far as trade and tariffs are concerned, right? Yeah.
And on top of that, I mean, he keeps threatening the 51st state. You could be the 51st state, but you don't make a state of a bunch of people or a country who it's not to your advantage to engulf a whole area that hates you.
No, it isn't.
And it isn't.
And
ultimately, it is an empty threat.
Well, I think from Trump's perspective, he would love it if Canada got its act together and we took steps to counter the fentanyl crisis and the pervasive infiltration of Chinese influence, including organized crime and, Chinese Communist Party operatives and influence in Canada. He would love to see progress on that front. And I think Trump would, rather than annex Canada, have a functional democracy here in Canada, one where we have a functional military, where we take our sovereignty seriously, and where we really work hand in glove with the Americans to again, like where we talked about continental defense and North American defense and Arctic sovereignty. Like I think that would be what he wants. He would like a strong ally in the North again, but he sees, based on intelligence, that Canada has turned into almost like a frenemy in the North, and he wants to see that change, and he's really riled us up.
Yeah,
we're talking about these things again.
Yeah, we are. And like I said, to Ford's credit, surprisingly, he did the right thing, and actually to probably bolster that, here's Donald Trump himself.
The right thing to do is what we're doing. We're going to get our jobs back, and we're not going to be left at. Now, I will say this, that already Canada, and I respect very much, as you know, there's a very strong man in Canada who said he was going to charge a surcharge or a tariff on electricity coming into our country. He has called and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that. And it would have been a very bad thing if he did, and he's not going to do that, so I respect that. We've been treated...
There you go.
That's interesting, right? Like the grudging respect from the president. And I think Ford, and not that they will sit down, but if they ever did, I think Ford and Trump would sit down and shake hands amicably and talk about, in a respectful way, about trade relationships and so on. And that's a bit of a a win, a minor win for
us.
Canada. But and yeah, for us, and also it gives. I think Trump deserves credit too, because he's not a tyrant. Like, people think he's a tyrant, but he's not. He will listen. If he was a true tyrant, he would have escalated again. But he actually listens to concerns. I think he listened to automobile manufacturers, for example, when they said, well, we need to think about this tariff situation a bit more, because it's going to be devastating on both sides of the border. And his willingness to listen to subject matter experts is to Trump's credit as well. So I think this is a minor victory on both sides of the border.
It is. It will be interesting.
It will be, yeah.
Anyways, I mean, despite our federal government, at the very least, still kind of figuring things out for themselves with their new emperor and all.
Yeah.
It's great that at least the provincial minister. I mean, not only Doug Ford, but also Daniel Smith of Alberta.
Yeah.
I think they mentioned in the video previous to this that she was down in Texas, meeting with oil people.
That's right.
And trying to wedge in there our, or at least her province's grievances and stuff.
Yeah.
And which is a lot more. I mean, whether it's because the federal government, or more specifically the Liberals, were a little consumed by their leadership race or whatnot. At least something is happening.
Yeah.
To our benefit, or
whatever. No, you're right. You're right. Like, the premiers have had to step up because of this absolute void of any power at the federal level, or even this willingness to do their jobs. Like Trudeau and the federal government were completely inept ever since Trump got in, right? Or even before Trump got in, right? Yeah, what a situation.
Yeah, I know. We had planned to go more into Mark Carney himself. I mean, he was just crowned, but you know what? I'm thinking that maybe we should wait a little more, a week, see what happens, and see where our government goes. See if we actually get the election called either this Sunday or hopefully next, and all, before we dive into Carney again. Because if we do it now, we're probably going to do it again. So
there's a lot to unpack with Mark Carney, and we're gonna have to expose him for some of his antics and some of his creativity with the truth. I'll put it that way.
But I think we'll give him a week to put his foot in his mouth again and again, and see if anything results of that. And I think we'll definitely have a little more detailed show on the new leadership probably next week and all that. But for now, I think we've come to the end of the show.
Yeah.
I think we covered quite a bit this week. And who knows? This is actually a good positive, really, to end on.
It is.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's always good to chalk up our small victories whenever they happen by, and I think this is one of them for sure. Yeah. And you're right. I think going forward, we'll have a lot of opportunity to pick apart Mark Carney and his when he makes those faux pas in front of the camera, which he so often does. We'll have lots more fodder going forward.
We'll have lots more fodder. We actually have fodder now, but I think it'd be a little more impactful once he's settled into his role and decides whether he's going to go for a leadership race, or not a leadership race, an actual election.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll be very interesting.
Oh yeah. Anything else you want to add before we close off?
That was a good show. We covered a lot of ground once again, and we had some laughs too. I'm looking forward.
Thank God we didn't we didn't go through the whole Carney speech, or I mean, it would have been more interesting to go through Chretien's, honestly. But
Yeah.
I don't think we need to really. I
Yeah.
mean, he's been looking like Mr. Burns, at least there, and it was kind of uncanny to see him pretty much like Mr. Burns. But anyways,
Yeah, he's
he's
still kicking.
Yeah, still kicking, and he's still the man from Shawinigan, and hopefully he doesn't give you the Shawinigan handshake.
Yeah.
Claw.
The claw, yeah, like
It's like the man has taken out a few of his detractors physically, and has actually lots to show for it. So, anyways, let's go through the details again. If you want to catch the show on Twitter, you can at Hand of Infinity, where the blue check mark for the show is, the Common Nonsense. You can also talk to me there. You can message me there. You can message Mikerowaveable at Mikerowaveable TCN. If you like watching us on YouTube, you can. The channel is the Common Nonsense YTC. If you look up on the page for the channel, you'll see the playlist for the podcasts right at the top. You can't miss it. Once again, all our shows are there. You can put it on the playlist, watch all our shows from finish to start, and see our evolution. We are now at episode 10. I forgot to mention that at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome.
You know, number 10. Hey, we're going somewhere. This only began as like, the show began as at a Christmas party, I believe. And between you and me, and we just had a little bit of a conversation. We liked our kind of banter during the election, I believe, the American election last year.
That's
and
right.
That's where the show came about. And then next, you know, a few weeks later, after the new year, here we are. We're in episode 10. So
yeah, and it's been a fun
more
ride.
thanks. Yeah, and there'll be many more, I'm sure. I mean, it's been exciting. It's actually been quite exciting news cycles, even within the last 7-6 weeks or something.
Yeah, there's
10
so much.
in our case.
So much has happened, right? Yeah, like Weather said this morning, like it's uncanny. It's amazing. Like it seems like Trump's been in office for a long time now, but you know, it's only what, like however many days and he's just been like moving so quickly that it seems like he's been in there for a lot longer.
It's been a whirlwind, and you know, it's like day and night literally from the beginning of the year to now. So anyhow, also we are on Rumble. As you can see, we're branded on Rumble thanks to our viewers there. Thank you for viewing our show, and keep it coming. Once again, we'll upload the show on Rumble after the live show. So sometime this evening, if you want to watch us there, or if you want to watch the show, you're more than welcome to. Other than that,
Awesome.
reach the end of the show. I am Weathers.
I'm Mikerowaveable. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Weathers. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers, everyone.